Good morning or afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us for today's SafetyChain session. I'm delighted to be hosting a panel discussion where we will be sharing with everyone online with us today about shaking up the status quo, how you can achieve better everyday results and improving your food safety and quality operations with technology. Absolutely delighted to be hosting today's panel discussion with a few of our customers, and they'll be sharing their insights. Before we get started, I should introduce myself. My name is Jill Bender. I'm with SafetyChain. I run our marketing operations here. For today's session, we will talk in a little bit about why technology and sort of sharing insights with a few of your peers on why they chose technology, a little bit about the implementation and adoption process they went through, as well as lessons learned and results being achieved. Before we get started, I always like to do a few housekeeping tips. This is with WebEx. You should be getting automatic audio via your computer speakers, but if that's not working too well, there was a conference number provided and strongly urge you to call that number instead. This is being recorded, and all registrants, quite a few, delighted about the response, will be receiving the recording link over the course of the next few business days. We do encourage questions. We have time for them. We will get to them, and there's a Q&A panel within WebEx. If we aren't able to, then we will get to you after the event, where we really do like to follow up with people. And then finally, I should mention that for privacy reasons, you should only be able to see the panelists with us today, and all lines are on mute. But as mentioned before, delighted with the response, and so we'll get going with today's session. So yes, good morning or afternoon to our fabulous panelists. Would like to introduce them. We've got Anthony Villaloboz on with us with Bobby Cox. Good morning, Anthony.
Good morning.
Delighted also to have Rudy deWit with us with Thresher. How you doing, Rudy?
Doing well, thank you, Jill. Good morning.
Great. And last but certainly not least, Madison Maxwell with Hummus. How are you, I should say, early afternoon to you, Madison.
Hey there.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time today and sharing with our audience a little bit of your insights and experiences in adopting technology. And we'll go ahead and just dive right in. So, Anthony, I'm going to go ahead and put you on the spot first, if you don't mind. We'll kind of dive into your path and journey with SafetyChain and technology in general and insights. But before we get started, why don't you give us a little bit of insights about Bobby Cox and what the company is all about?
Sure thing, Jill. My name is Anthony Villaloboz. I'm Director of QA for Bobby Cox Company. Bobby Cox started these companies back when, well, he first got introduced into like Tex-Mex with Del Taco and with Ed Hackbarth, who actually started Del Taco. And so Ed Hackbarth took him under his wing, and Bobby kind of loved what he did with restaurants, and he had this big culture about quality and always keeping a great product for the customer. So he went on to start his own different chains. So he started Taco Villa, Texas Burger, and Rosa's Cafe. And he's grown Rosa's Cafe into a 48-chain restaurant right now. And then he has his Taco Villa still and his Texas Burger concept. So he really started out like that, and he is just a wonderful man to work for and very business savvy, super smart. And right now, he has me as Director of QA, and we have headquarters in Fort Worth and Midland, Texas. So he's been in business for 50-plus years. And because he cared about quality so much, especially when it came to items like our proteins, like beef, he actually started his own facility that's USDA inspected, that produces our fajitas, our ground beef, our hamburger patties. And we also have a distribution center at that site to help us kind of ensure this quality. And it's kind of like how we've grown. So if you're from Texas, I urge you to please try Rosa's Cafe and try our beef fajitas. And so with that, because we cared so much about quality, we started looking into more systems like SafetyChain. Sorry, Jill, go ahead.
No, absolutely. Thanks for diving in there. That's exactly where we wanted to go. And you know, as far as that, share with us from Bobby Cox, why technology? What brought that on?
So any QA person will tell you that they have tons of files. I mean, they'll tell you they have loads of just shelves and filing cabinets full of just files, right? I mean, and technology is obviously where everybody's going. Like, it makes life a little bit easier, but sometimes we get too dependent. But right now, I feel like we needed technology not just to be able to kind of limit how much space we're taking up with all these different files, but also, so the problem that happens when you have like one single file is that only one person can kind of get to it at a time. And so we wanted to be able to have it set up where everybody can look at the files at the same time. If we're having an audit, if we're having different people in at the same time, we all want to be able to see those files. And we all want to know that, you know, especially with digital files, like everything's getting logged as it's submitted. You know exactly what's happening in real time. So, and with that, it's going to help us kind of drill down where our weaknesses are at, as well, kind of our gaps. That's kind of why we sought out companies like SafetyChain.
Excellent. Well, could you take us down that path then? What was sort of your decision-making process in defining the right system?
So, Jill, we looked at a few different companies, and, you know, we're a smaller facility. We're not this huge ConAgra or Cargill type company, right? I mean, so the biggest issue with us was like, yeah, we want something, but we don't want to spend like $100,000 a year on it. And some of the systems we saw were like that. And then we limited it down to two different systems, which is SafetyChain and one of your competitors. And what we went with SafetyChain is, and why we loved it, was that the app worked and the browser worked and it worked offline. So, you know, what usually happens when you're logging any data, especially in cold environments, you typically go into like basically a Faraday cage, which is what a walk-in is like, a large like freezer or a large cooler. So there's not a lot of signal getting out of those. So when we got to test SafetyChain's app, we were able to like make changes offline, and then once we got into a good area where there was plenty of Wi-Fi, we were able to sync up, and actually it helped us. But we did run across systems that were not SafetyChain that just relied on HTML5 type programming, and that just didn't work for us.
No, we often hear that as far as the offline, and as we've sort of grown up and our focus is on the food industry, we know that all the operations are everywhere, right? So I'm glad to hear that sort of validates our continued focus on that. And I appreciate you mentioning as far as, you know, we work with so many customers throughout the food supply chain, large and small, and our capabilities to scale up and scale down based on specific needs. So great. Thank you for that. So share with us, how are you actually using the technology?
So right now we've pretty much stayed with our food safety programs to use that technology, but we are expanding into more of our QA checklists, more of our quality checks. So right now we're using it for our HACCP program, and especially our pre-op program, because the thing about pre-op, it happens so early in the morning for most facilities that not everybody's there to see exactly what happened. So sometimes things get lost in the shuffle, I guess, and until you're actually sitting there and tabulating it or copying the data down into some type of spreadsheet, right? So it's not one of these things that you see like instantaneously. So with the SafetyChain software, we're able to see it like as soon as it happens. Like everybody gets an alert, everybody knows about it. So, and right now we're using different types of tablets. We've been going back and forth whether it needs to be an iOS or Droid, but the cool thing with the SafetyChain software is that we can use either, because you typically keep a really good track record on updating the iOS version or the Droid version. So, yeah, that's helped us. And the Droid, are a little bit cheaper, so we tend to stray to those. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and I know a lot of our customers sort of play with different concepts as far as tablets and which ones work best. We often, try to help them through based on other customers' experiences. So that's great. So if you wouldn't mind sharing then, as far as from an implementation standpoint, did you have to go through any process changes? What were some things you could share with people online with us today?
Well, you know, you think like your forms are perfect, and they work great probably, like what you have now probably works great, right, in paper form. Like you have everything you want on that paper form, right? But you get to learn that what might be perfect on paper is not actually like the best way to do it, because now you have this piece of technology that allows you to make all these submissions really easy. So you have to go back and try to look at your process when it comes to actually just form filling and see what's logical to have in separate forms or be its own little check. And that way you're not bogging down the system with all this data, but you're actually just submitting what happens as you check it, you know? You're not trying to check 5 different things on one sheet. You're submitting as you check. I guess that's the best way to explain it on the tablet. What else did you want to ask me, Jill, about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Keep it going. What was part of that, right? I mean, certainly as you identify your processes, rollout and adoption is a big component of the success of moving from paper to a technology. So if you wouldn't mind sharing, how did that go, and perhaps a lesson learned or two?
Oh, well, the funniest thing to me was like, you know, I kind of signed it like, oh, this is going to be, I signed on to SafetyChain like, this is going to be easy. I'm just going to give them my forms. I'm going to call it a day, right? So I remember the first time submitting the form, I was told like, hey, we want to see your processes and everything else. I'm like, why do you want to do that? You can't just stick the form on the tablet and call it a day and, you know, we can move on to our next project, right? So
right.
that's not the case, because, you know, data-driven tablets work a lot different than a paper form. So, yeah, it was quite an experience, but I think it made, I really feel like it did make our process better and more logical, and even helped us with some of our gaps, because like people have gaps. Everybody's going to have some type of gap, and really that's what QA is about, is like just continuously improving your process so you get closer to perfection, but you never quite get there.
It's a continuous pursuit, absolutely. Well, what about as far as like the actual usage? I know you talked about a little bit of resistance. People still wanted their paper, right, each day to mark things off of.
We're all like creatures of habit, right? We want to do it every day. I mean, you have techs that they're used to filling out the same forms, and you have people in shipping and receiving that like are used to the same form. So you bring in a completely new way of new system, and then you start changing the processes on them. Yeah, there's going to be resistance, but the funniest thing to me is once they got used to doing it, they started asking me, when can we get rid of the paper? Because we hadn't fully transitioned off of the paper yet. We're still kind of in that testing phase. Yeah,
right.
They're not used to it. They wanted to get rid of the paper because they hate messing with it, touching it, or having to find it, especially if somebody else is using that particular form or maybe that sheet, they're reviewing it. But yeah, it definitely has changed, and it's gotten better for sure, where everybody's on track of everything. So I guess the cool thing with the notifications that has helped us is like instead of having these meetings, like what's going on, like everybody kind of knows. So, and we're still learning with analytics, and we see a lot of great info just with analytics. Like we're able to actually to go in and look at some of our trends, especially with our pre-op. The biggest thing that helped us with the adoption was like we got a really great account manager named Conti, and she like helped us through quite a bit of it. Just made our life easier, kind of helped us make our process logical.
Excellent, and I'm delighted to hear that you'll be digging into analytics. That was part of our new enhancement to our solution suite. We're very excited about what that affords our customers can do. So, Anthony, talk a little bit about impact. So, if you wouldn't mind sharing just our overall, you know, the impacts thus far with adopting technology.
Well, it makes my life easier because I travel a lot, so I'm able to log in and kind of see what's happening and not rely on a report. it also makes it so, like when we have an issue, like everybody's notified, is what I talked about earlier, and instead of having those meetings going over what happened during the day, you kind of already are going through that throughout the day. You're just having meetings about how it was resolved. And so, yeah, it's really helped with that, with knowing what's going on in the facility at all times.
Great. I appreciate that feedback. I think also when we talk about, what you're being able to achieve, what about, what's next, right? You've shared a lot of what you've been through and what you're doing. What are you looking forward to doing in the near future?
Obviously, like, there's so much you can do with the analytics. Like, we're just skimming the surface on our last meeting with Conti, and it's just, I can see, like, there's going to be a lot of opportunity, especially not just within our company, but also our sanitation company, to improve certain things that they're doing. Yeah, and with restaurants, that's possibly down the road, looking at some type of checklist. But right now we use like a paper checklist, and eventually, that will happen. But right now we're just sticking with our facility.
Great. And well, we'll look forward to diving into that venture when you all are ready for it. I know when we're sort of chatting a little bit before this session and talking about some of the different things, we were kind of making a joke about how, your life's a little bit easier now because you don't have to race into the office. You kind of know what's going on right away in that visibility. So delighted to hear that, and really appreciate you sharing your insights. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill.
So hang on tight. We're going to bring you on back, as you know, because we have a few more questions for you, Anthony, so you don't get away that easily. But thank you for the Bobby Cox story, and I'm delighted to join us on our virtual stage, we'll call it, back to Rudy deWit with Thresher. How are you doing today, Rudy?
Doing well, Jill. How are you doing this afternoon or morning?
Doing good. You sound subdued. I'm gonna throw some coffee over to you, and why don't you share with us what's going on with Thresher and give us a little bit of insights about what Thresher is all about.
Well, our plant is part of the Thresher organization. Totally, we employ about 70 people in Idaho. In our plant, we have 11 employees. What we do is we process soft white wheat predominantly into a ready-to-eat ingredient for a number of cereal plants in the United States. We ship on average about 6 rail cars a day, about 200,000 pounds, and we supply 2 of the larger cereal companies in this country.
Excellent. I'm going to guess that the bowl of cereal I shared with my daughter this morning probably has your product in that. Would that be a safe assumption?
I think that's a very, very safe assumption, yes, indeed.
And I know your commitment to quality is much appreciated as I enjoy my morning with my daughter. So share with us, Rudy, why did Thresher move to technology? What was the reasoning?
We renovated our cleaning process about 1.5 years ago. We added some real technology to the actual cleaning process that involves optical sorting and X-ray sorting. And as part of that renovation, we decided that, for 20 years we've done everything on paper. It was time to improve. We talked to a couple of different companies. We had talked to SafetyChain a few times, and we finally made the decision to go with the SafetyChain. But the technology is a big, big part of it. The paper files that were just previously mentioned, that we just had mounds and mounds of paper everywhere. And moving to digital technology has really streamlined that for us.
Excellent. It seems like as the industry continues to adopt technologies in all the other areas, I'm glad that your operations and food safety and quality operations are able to have technology efficiencies as well. So I know you touched this a little bit as far as your decision-making process, but if you wouldn't mind sharing just a little bit more, what you all went through.
Well, prior to being part of Thresher, we were part of a very, very large organization, and we had looked at SafetyChain a couple of times, but it's a bit difficult at times to break down corporate barriers, especially in large corporations, and So we struggled there a little bit, but when we were sold and we went on our own, then we went back to SafetyChain, re-engaged with them, and that's when we made the change to go from paper to technology.
Excellent. I know it's interesting, you know, I talk about the SafetyChain, you know, the number of companies we work with, you know, of all ranging sizes. A lot of our larger companies, such as the ones that you were part of, often run in, you know, decentralized motion and are able to implement technology at different facilities. And some we do see it through the corporate as well. So not surprised by that, and we're delighted that you stuck and continued. So share with us, how are you using technology? How are you using SafetyChain at Thresher?
Well, we have a number, and I use this word loosely, audits that we use. You know, they cover our cleaning and our sanitation processes. They cover our car cleaning, rail car cleaning processes. They cover our metal detection processes. They monitor what product goes out. There's just a number of different things that we do, and we really value the ability to do this on tablets, which makes it so user-friendly for people, you know, kind of out in the field, the guys that are actually out there doing the work. I mean, they have their tablets, they enter the data. We're able to monitor it real time. We know what's being done. You know, I'm in SafetyChain at least a dozen times a day, and the oversight that I have, the visibility that I have, the ability to sign and approve records, it's really incredible. And it's very important to us. Most of our customers now demand that we are, you know, third-party certified, SQF, BRC, whatever it be. Okay, and the ability to tie our records to the SQF code, and when we are audited, to be able to produce these things with relative ease is just incredible.
Excellent. I know so many of our customers are GFSI certified with different schemes, and some of them, as you mentioned, multiple schemes. So yeah, we do hear that a lot as far as that ability of the code being in the system and tying elements and records is very handy. What about from an implementation standpoint, Rudy? Was there any sort of process changes you had to go through as far as, you know, implementation?
The implementation was really very, very simple. You know, when we initially had our meetings with SafetyChain, I kind of wondered how well they would cross our paper records into digital audits. It was just a real simple system. I mean, we send more paper records. They gave us a sample audit and said, "Is this going to work for you? What do you think?" And I mean, that part was just really, really easy. We had incredible support from the SafetyChain leaders in the implementation team, I'll say. You know, we had weekly meetings with them.
Right.
We are not 100% paperless. I wish we were, but we're certainly headed down that road. And it's very, very easy to work with the SafetyChain team. I mean, if you need something, you send them what you need, and, you know, a day or two later, you've got a transcript saying, "Hey, is this going to work for you, or is it not going to work for you? What changes do we need to make?"
Great. I think that's the part about configuration, right? Every customer, well, you know, food safety plans have certain parameters. Every operations is different. So the fact that our team worked hard to configure your system and it was seamless or fluid to you, that's great. What about from a rollout and an adoption? You know, anything you'd like to share, so perhaps lessons learned through the process?
Oh boy, I can go a long ways here. You know, we had, obviously, I mean, we've been doing this for 20 plus years, and everything was on paper. And, you know, we told the team, "Look, guys, we're going to get away from paper. We're going to go to a digital format. You guys are going to start using, you know, tablets to record activities." And, you know, I mean, people looked at you like you were coming from Mars, seriously. I mean, you got to be kidding me. We can't do this. And the interesting part of it is that once we did the transition, it was amazing. Everybody on the team saw the value of it and saw the time savings we were accomplishing and the ability to no longer have to file paperwork, to, it was just great. And the team bought in, and I'm saying within weeks. I mean, everybody was on board, and it was just, it's a great deal. And especially people are able to see when we're non-compliant. And with us, and different businesses, everybody's set up a different way, okay? With us, a non-compliant audit, and again, I use the word audit loosely, is a good thing, okay? We want to know when something wasn't meeting our specifications. It gives us an area to address, and it lets people, the supervisory people that look at the audits, they're able to see, okay, we're not in compliance. What went wrong, okay, or why are we not in compliance? And again, for us, not being compliant is not a bad thing. It's just an alert for something for us to look at.
Absolutely. Well, look at and respond to sooner before it becomes something downstream bigger, right? So, no, that's excellent. What about from just an impact? I know we've talked a little bit about that here and there with the different questions I've thrown at you, but if you were just to sum up the overall impact of technology, what would you share?
Well, one thing I think we have saved at least a half a full-time position on an employee by being able to do this all digitally. The online visibility, the ability to see task completion, the ability to see the results essentially live time is just really incredible. All our records are now time and date stamped. They have signatures on them that they've been approved by, somebody with approval authority. Really reduced our downstream complaints. One of the things that we discussed earlier is most of our business is done bulk and rail cars. So when we do our rail car cleaning, the audit has the ability to take photographs of the interior of the car, and when we send that car out, we can demonstrate to a customer that when it left us, it left in a sanitary condition, and that's a big deal. I mean, it gives us a lot of it just gives us a lot of ability to relate with customers and to let them know that we are serious about food safety.
Right. I think that level of transparency helps validate that, right? I mean, that's great. It's interesting. Every time I talk to a customer, there's a different angle, and I appreciate that. So what's next, Rudy? What else? I know you've talked about going completely paperless. I'm going to ask my team to send you some heavy-duty shredders, so when your records are no longer needed, in paper ones. So I'm sure of that. What do you got going for the next step?
Well, I'd love to say that we're 100% paperless. We're not. We still have about, a dozen forms that we do on paper, and some of them are a bit complex that don't readily relate themselves to a digital form, but most of them are not that complex, and we are in the process of changing everything to where it's done on the tablet, and where paper is no longer going to be part of our process.
Excellent. I know it's interesting when you talk about the complexities. There's quite a bit of sharing of best practices amongst our company launch, our customer launch team and success team about best ways to tackle that. So I'm sure your account team is ready to roll up their sleeves on that one, right?
You are so correct.
That's great. Well, thank you, Rudy. I am going to move on to our next panelist, but if you hang on tight, we're going to ask you to answer a few more questions as we wrap this up. That is so wonderful. Thank you for sharing your story. And last but not least, delighted to introduce back Madison Maxwell with Hummus. Hello, Madison.
Hey, Jill. How are you?
Hi, I am good. It's good for a Thursday. It feels a little bit like Friday around here. Thank you for sharing with us here. I should say that I'm a big, as you know, Hummus, Villaloboz, love the brand. And share with us, what's Roots all about?
So we're an Asheville-based company. We started, maybe 10 years ago, and we have grown from basically being we actually started making salads for a co-op, and we've grown to a full-fledged hummus company with just under 50 employees. We specialize in small batch scratch-made hummus. And though we do work in small batches and everything is scratch-made, and it sounds like we have a good number of employees, it's a very labor-intensive process. So we are still very much a growing company. We also do some work to the community with our Roots Foundation as well.
Excellent. And I know that you've been with Roots for quite long and a good few years in your current role.
Yes, I've actually, I just celebrated my 5-year anniversary with the company, but I have been in the natural food and gourmet food industry for more than 10 years. I also wanted to mention, I almost forgot to mention about Roots. We're not nationwide yet. You can check our website if you're interested in trying our hummus, but we are available in the Southwest, the South Pacific region, the Southeast, and the Northeast in the United States. And we are also non-GMO verified, which has been part of my role with Roots. As the Director of Food Safety and Compliance, it's not just food safety that I'm focusing on. I'm also working on non-GMO verification, which we've had. It's a matter of maintaining it, and then also some other things like kosher and things like that.
And I know all of that is a lot of heavy lifting, similar to any certification you have. So share with us, why technology? Why did Roots decide to move to technology?
Well, I always like to think about this in terms of just where the world is going in general, and so I ask really, why not technology? Everything moves quickly. There's an expectation that, with the way that the world is moving, that we'd be able to get answers quickly, we'd be able to solve problems quickly. And obviously with FSMA, it's not even on the horizon. It's, the date for the compliance date for our business has come and gone. So we very much have to keep up with it. And the fact that our product is it's a high risk food, it's a ready to eat food, it's crucial that we get it right. So we really do need that real-time visibility of the operations. And, we just need the efficiency of automation, reducing that human error that can come with, oh, did I submit that form? Oh, did I write down my initials? All that kind of stuff that we can sort of work out of the system by taking it from paper to a digital format.
Oh, no, thank you for that. I love your why not technology. It seems the rest of the operation is using and has been using technology, right? So it's fairly obvious the most important, I won't say the most important part, but a big important part of the company is food safety and quality. That finally all get technology too. So talk to us about the decision-making process.
So we did research on a few different competitors, both direct and indirect competitors. There are, obviously a couple of other food-specific programs, like SafetyChain out there, but then there's also some software that's non-food specific. So we kind of considered a bunch of different options to try to determine what would be the best sort of catch-all solution for us. As we're a small company, we have a limited budget, so we have to be very careful about how we decide to spend our money. And we found that with the software that had a non-specific focus that was could be used for any type of business, we found that it would have taken us at least 2 years to implement, any kind of full service model, and it would have just been so much painful work for us. It would have been probably 2 or 3 people's full-time job just to build this thing out, and then we wouldn't even know at the end of it if it actually worked or would be satisfactory to regulatory officials. So when we looked at SafetyChain, what we really liked about your company was that it was very inclusive and it was clean and straightforward, and there was a support team ready in place that really knew a lot about the best practices. We could ask them questions, and they could say, well, other companies your size or other companies in your area do these kinds of things. Maybe consider this. Or, if it was something that we hadn't quite yet formalized, oh, I don't know what information we need to collect at this stage of the process. They could say, well, here's a sample that, another company or other companies or a collection of companies have used, right, and take a look at it and streamline it and make it fit for your process. And just having that kind of guidance from the get-go has made this so much easier. We just feel taken care of.
Well, excellent. We like I said, we work so hard, but I think it's that continuous improvement, you know, outwards and inwards, it helps in that process. That's great. So share with us, how are you using the technology?
So we're definitely using it for our food safety, our quality checks, you know, pre-op, post-op sanitation, those kind of really basic things. We actually just rolled out our supplier compliance module, so we're starting to collect all of that paperwork, which anybody who's done any kind of supplier compliance at this stage in the game knows. If you work with, I think we have 30 some odd suppliers, which is, you know, not a whole bunch for some companies, but is a bunch to us. That's a lot of paperwork, especially when you have, you know, non-GMO and kosher and all these other things that you're trying to get on top of just your basic food safety stuff. So we have, we've used it for, we started using it for that, and also just, you know, using tablets out in production, you know, on the floor, and just reducing that that paper.
Great, and I could appreciate, I think from a supplier compliance, you know, it's interesting. We have some customers that are quite large that don't have tons of suppliers, and then we have other companies that have hundreds, if not thousands of suppliers. So I know just it explodes as far as the number of paperwork and complexities for sure. What about from an implementation and any process changes that you had to go through?
Well, our control testing, excuse me, our control testing form was one that we had to do a considerable rework on. You know, we had a process, and you know, we're doing all these controls on paper, and we had one of our more technology-resistant managers say, "Hey, I really hate this form that you designed for us, you know, digitally." And so we sat down. He's like, "What if you did it like this?" And he actually designed it, redesigned the thing for us. And so, you know, basically by talking to him and working with him, we got to customize it in a way that worked for him and that really worked for the whole team in a much more sensible way. And so it was a really good way to not only involve the team that's actually doing this every day in the process, but also get a little bit more buy-in from the team so that they're on board. They're saying, hey, they're listening to us. They're, you know, they're doing what we ask them to do, you know, as we build this out. So so we did really kind of have to rethink the way and the timing of recording the data, especially for that form and for a couple of others as well.
Absolutely. Well, and I think it's interesting, too, because you don't always hear it when someone actually, you know, we'll call them the front line, not necessarily front line, but really rolls up their sleeves and contributes to that implementation, which I think from certainly a rollout, my next question to you is, would probably make it even more ideal. But share with us, you know, from a rollout, the adoption, what were some experiences, you know, perhaps a few lessons learned?
Well, I think I share the experiences with a lot of folks. I mean, even just people on this panel, there's a lot of folks in production who are just not quite ready to let go of their old habits, and they like that, you know, paper and pen immediacy. So having to, you know, get a tablet is a bit of a change for them. But now that they've had a chance to sort of get used to it and it's become the new normal, it's a lot easier, it's a lot less clutter, and it's a lot less just data entry after the fact. We save all these really boring man hours that nobody wants to work. Nobody wants to sit in and re-enter data that's on a piece of paper. So, you know, they're not having to do that kind of work, and I think they're really starting to see that, wow, this is a time saver, and it's saving me from having to do this really boring work. But it also, beyond that, gives managers an opportunity to take a look and see what this data actually means, what the trends are. Because, you know, before we really started implementing this, we had a bunch of data, we had a bunch of paper, but we didn't really have, it was a lot of data, but really not a lot of information. We couldn't really say, oh, you know, we see this trend over time, so let's do this to fix it. It was just, well, if we really wanted to dig in, we could maybe extrapolate some ideas from it, but it would take hours and hours, and would it even be worth it? So that alone has been really huge. So I guess if we were to do something a little bit different, I think that that one thing that I would like to have had more in place before we started was a little bit more of our SOPs written out. You know, we had our GMPs in place. We were using our good manufacturing practices, but we hadn't quite yet formalized a lot of them in you know, documentation. So having to basically write some of our SOPs out as we are writing forms and basing them off of it was a little bit more work. Basically, if anything has to change, you kind of have to train people as you go, and you're rolling out forms, so it can be a little bit overwhelming for folks if you try to change too many things at once. So that would be my biggest piece of advice for somebody, you know, as you're looking to implement software. Make sure that what you're implementing represents as little change as possible. You're just formalizing something that's already happening.
No, absolutely. And I know it's interesting because then the baseline's been set, and as we're talking about, then you start having data to react to, and then the good news is, right, then you can modify and improve upon things, and that can be done easily within SafetyChain. But no, that's good advice. So as far as this impact, you've already sort of talked about this a little bit, but anything else you want to share as far as overall impact?
I think the biggest sort of takeaways here, at least for us, we are now able to really know who's doing what, when it's getting done, exactly down to the minute. You know, I really like the immediacy of reporting. There's one thing that we've traditionally had issues with is communication between departments. So say an issue happens in one department and, you know, they're going to tell their immediate supervisor, absolutely. But then does their immediate supervisor think to tell me or, you know, tell the director of operations? Maybe, maybe not, depends on what the issue is. And, you know, a lot of times people who really need to know would get left out and they would find out through the grapevine after the fact. So this software kind of eliminates the possibility of people getting left out of the loop when they really need to know. And, you know, for some of the things that I'm doing, you know, I rely on this data. So I now don't have to go and hunt down paperwork. I don't have to go find people. Hey, did you fill this out? Hey, who actually did this? There's no initials. Those kinds of really, really mundane details that we really don't want to be spending our time on, I don't really have to do anymore. And for, you know, the non-GMO project, if anybody, you know, listening is non-GMO certified, you'll know that there is a good bit of paperwork that goes along with that, and some of it varies on your supplier. So, and it can be challenging to get that paperwork in time for your deadline. So having that set up in a portal where it's as simple as just clicking a couple of buttons and an email notification goes out makes my life so much easier.
Oh, excellent. I'm glad to hear that. That's what we're about, and we'll hopefully keep making your life easier. So on that vein, what's next on Rudy's plate with technology?
So in this next few weeks here, we're working on implementing a lot tracking system. It's something that we've been meaning to do for quite some time. And the great thing about SafetyChain is that we do have the ability to do this within the software. And, you know, because everybody's already familiar with the platform, rolling it out isn't going to be that challenging. So everybody knows that it's coming, and we're working on it. And so that's really exciting. And then we're also moving to a larger facility. We're currently in the design phase because we have outgrown the building we're in right now, and we're kind of between a couple of facilities sharing, you know, sharing our time and our efforts between them. So we'll all be under one roof hopefully within the next year or two, and it'll be a game changer on a lot of levels.
Well, as Roots continues to grow and spread across the United States, it seems like you'll just have to keep growing and growing, right?
Indeed.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you, Madison. I know I kind of asked you quite a bit, and I appreciate you sharing your insights. And for those that can stay on for another 5-10 minutes or so, I do have a few more questions to ask our panelists. So we'll just kind of pretend everyone is back up on that virtual stage, and I'm going to just throw out a few questions if you guys Anthony, Rudy, and Madison are up for it. I'll keep going. I will. So with the first I'm going to throw out there is, you know, and I'll go ahead and start with you, Rudy. What is one thing today that you couldn't do previously?
I would say simply the ability to have your records in one place in real time and to be able to access them would be the biggest thing. And you know, we talked about that previously when you talked about resistance to change. One of our best plant operators, and I mean this guy is the greatest, okay? When we decided to go digital, he was just not only adamantly opposed, he was double adamantly opposed, okay? Never going to work, never going to work. And actually he became a great advocate of it. And like I said, the ability to be able to look at records, and Madison pointed it out, and Anthony pointed it out, the real-time access to records, that you know what happened, 5 minutes ago, if you will, or yesterday, is just incredible. And there was no way we could do that. I mean, previously, the paper files were kind of stored in a file box, and then every month you'd go through them and sort them out and, look through them. This is just such an improvement over that.
Excellent. Well, I know some of our customers, they've shown us rooms and rooms and rooms, warehouse full of records in that case. What about Madison? Why don't you share with us? What's one key thing that you can now do that you couldn't do prior?
The analytics piece of the software has been a real eye-opener, and it allows us to connect data that we're collecting across departments and put it together in a way that shows us long-term trends that we've never really been able to do before. I think that piece alone is worth a whole lot.
Excellent. Yes, I'm a big fan of our analytics tools, and so glad to hear that you're digging into that. Anthony, what about you?
For me, it's more like peace of mind, kind of what Rudy was talking about. But for me, like, I have to travel to like different suppliers or different restaurants even, and the hardest thing is like being able to be connected with the facility all the time. So if right before I fly, I get to review records and look at them and go over them, and then even like in the hotel room. So it makes my life a lot easier, I guess. It's kind of selfish, but yeah, it makes my life easier, that's for sure.
Hey, you are allowed to be selfish. If we're able to make your life easier and more efficient and better at your job, that's great. Well, I'll just go ahead and keep you keep talking if you don't mind, and just Anthony sharing with us, if you were to do it again, what would you do differently?
Oh man, I'd be a lot more prepared. I walked into that, like I told y'all, like I was just here's my forms, like just put them online for me. But I wish I would have been like streamlined my process, kind of like what Madison was talking about, like done that earlier on than like trying to figure it out as you were setting up this new system. Yeah, that's what I would have done different.
And what about you, Rudy? What would you have done different?
Boy, I'm right with Anthony on that one. Honestly, wish we'd have did this 2 or 3 years prior to when we did it. It's just been a great improvement for our operation.
So it kind of pushes the envelope too. I know a lot of our customers, when they dive in, they're like, oh wait, we want to change and make things better, and that's part of the process, certainly. For you, Madison, what would you do differently?
Kind of a combination of what they were saying as well. I do wish I had started a little bit earlier, maybe, considerably before the FSMA deadline, and also before we had as many documents as we have. If you start with fewer forms, there's little you can sort of add on as you go instead of having a whole bunch of forms to do all at once. I do wish that we, again, as I said earlier, prepared our SOPs, all of them that we didn't have, a little bit more in advance, so we weren't sort of double teaming on training. And then I also kind of wish that I brought on some of our more technology resistant folks sooner and just communicated with them the direction that we were going and asked for their input on the build out of forms a little bit more quickly than I actually ended up doing.
No, I think that sort of buy-in, earlier the better, is always good. And I know that each of you sort of touched on the project team, where we're very proud of our team and in their push to our customer success. But Rudy, why don't you start? Share, how was SafetyChain's project team through the process? Oops, are you there, Rudy? You might be on mute.
I think I lost you.
There you are. No worries.
I'm sorry.
No, that's great.
No, the team was just terrific. Again, I mean, the support we got, the help that we get anytime we have issues, I can only say that the project team is terrific.
Excellent. And what about you, Anthony? What do you have to share about SafetyChain?
Well, they really kept me on track because, like, I have this tendency on projects that are outside my normal work to kind of procrastinate. So they really, like, we had weekly meetings just to make sure that everybody was communicating, everybody was on track, and yeah, that they really pushed me to get it done, and I appreciate that. I appreciate Conti, Brandon. Yeah, our team was great.
You know, I'm just going to interrupt here. I have to echo that very thought. I mean, we worked with Julia, and she was outstanding. And the fact that she mandated weekly meetings, I'm kind of with Anthony there. You know, if it's something that doesn't fall right into my realm, procrastinate, it'll be there next week. She never allowed that to happen. And that and people on my team that really made it happen too. And I think one of my team members is on this webinar, Jennifer, and I really got to give her kudos for everything she did to make this thing happen. But yeah, Julia and Jennifer were just great.
The team collaboration, absolutely. What about you, Madison?
So David is our project manager, and he has been just an incredible wealth of information, helping us kind of, any questions that we have, helping us sort of work through what those best practices are, and providing samples where we know if we were completely clueless on a specific question, he'd say, okay, here's a sample, take a look at this and see how it might work for you. And he also really helped us, he worked with me with my thought process because I kind of work a little bit differently than some people do. And he would ask questions, he still does. He asks these great questions of, you know, well, where do you see this as a possibility in 2 years? How about this? And so, you know, if we are trying to build out the system for something that works today, he knows the questions to ask to make sure that we're building it intelligently so that we can scale for growth.
Excellent. I wish I could bring many more of our customers on to share their kudos with many of our more members of our customer success and launch teams. So that's great. Thank you. And then finally, just one last question for you all. And, you know, this kind of goes a little bit against of what you would do differently, but let's throw it out there. When is the right time to prepare and begin? And Rudy, why don't you share with us? What do you think?
You know, I'm not sure what to say. I'm going to say the time is now, okay? Tomorrow is promised to no man. If you're ready to go with this, get going. It's that simple.
Oh, very straightforward. What about you, Anthony?
Well, for me, like, or anybody that's in QA, like, there's never, like, the perfect time. You don't have, like, excess amount of time to do something. So there's never going to be a perfect time. You just need to get it done.
It's just roll up the sleeves and make it happen. And Madison, your thoughts?
I really don't have much to add beyond what they said. I mean, the sooner the better. Even if you don't feel like you have all the paperwork in place, you will get it in place, especially if you work with, you know, with a dedicated project manager who pushes you. But I think it's especially important with FSMA being in place that you push yourself and you move forward as quickly as possible.
I appreciate that. I think, you know, it's interesting. You look at this, you know, all your roles, and many of the peers that are on the call too, the importance of food safety and quality to the company, right, to the health and the well-being of the company, and having tools in place to enable your continued success. That's, you know, right then and there. It kind of begs the question of why wait, right? So, no, thank you for that. My goodness, that was a lot of information shared, and I cannot continue to say how appreciative that SafetyChain is for all three of you to share your stories. Thank you so much, Anthony, Rudy, and Madison, for taking your time out of your day to share with your peers on the call today your experiences.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
you. No, absolutely. And I should just say, just as we wrap up here, I know a lot of people on the call with us today are already chatting with us. I see a couple customers online with us and a couple of my folks in the editorial world. But just as a reminder, our food safety and quality suite, supplier compliance, food safety, quality, CIP optimization, materials loss, we grow with you as your needs. Our customer base is throughout the supply chain with companies on the smaller to global companies. So we're delighted with partnering up with our customers and their food safety and quality success. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today's session. I so appreciate how interactive it was. Any questions we didn't get to from our audience, we will get to you offline. Thank you for that interest. As mentioned, a recording will be sent out next week. When you hang up, you'll see a little event form that pops up. If you need anything from us, let us know. We do have in about a week or so another webinar online that will be specific to just a solutions overview and live demo and just in general. We really try to help both our customers, prospects, the industry alike in keeping up to date on everything that's going on, the complexities of your job and your roles, and appreciate everyone's involvement in really ensuring the safe quality food of both to our families, right, and to consumers in general. So thank you again to our panelists today, and thank you to those that had joined us as well. And have a good day.